And just a word about the second Sunday of Christmas. And preachers are given an option. You'll notice in your bulletins that there is a, kind of an extended insert. And actually, you're given two options in Matthew. One is the Magi, the wise men, the visitation of the wise men following the star. That's one story. That's the first 11 verses in Matthew's Gospel. The other option is in Luke, and that's the story of the presentation when the Holy Family goes to Jerusalem for the initial presentation in the temple. That would have been perhaps 40 days after the birth itself. And the third option, which I'm taking, is the story of the flight into Egypt. So I've never preached on this before. I don't think I've ever read it in the church on the second Sunday after Christmas. But anyway, we'll see where this takes us. The Holy Gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ according to St. Matthew. This is the second chapter beginning at verse 13. After the wise men had left, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, "Get up, take the child and his mother, and flee to Egypt, and remain there until I tell you. For Herod is about to search for the child to destroy him." And then Joseph got up, took the child and his mother by night, and went to Egypt, and remained there until the death of Herod. This was to fulfill what had been spoken by the Lord through the prophet, "Out of Egypt I have called my son." Now when Herod died, an angel of the Lord suddenly appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt and said, "Get up, take the child and his mother, and go back to the land of Israel, for those who were seeking the child's life are dead." And then Joseph got up, took the child and his mother, and returned to the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was ruling over Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. And after being warned in a dream, he went away to the district of Galilee. There, he made his home in a town called Nazareth, so that what had been spoken through the prophet might be fulfilled. Quote, "He will be called a Nazarene." And that is the gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Christ. So it's a 5th grade Sunday school class, and got a substitute teacher who's come in not really familiar with the curriculum, and just decides, because she has an artistic bent, that she will supply all the children with some paper and colored pencils, and asks them to draw a picture of their favorite Bible story. So here's all these children, in their little desks, and they're busy, drawing their little pictures of their favorite Bible story. And she's now walking up and down in the aisles and looking at what the children are drawing. And she comes up to the desk of Johnny, 9 or 10 years old, something like that. And Johnny's got something that looks like an airplane, it's sort of a tube with little holes in the side and so forth, and says, "Johnny, what are we doing there?" And he said, "Well, that's an airplane." And who is that in the back? "Well, that's Jesus, the baby Jesus, with Mary and Joseph." And she said, "What is this?" And he said, "The flight into Egypt." And there's there's kind of a rather sinister looking character in the front of the airplane, kind of dark beard and scary looking and all that. And she said, "Well, who is that?" And Johnny looks up at the teacher as though she just fell off the truck and said, "Pontius the Pilate." Anyway, here we have just a couple of verses in Matthew's gospel that Joseph really is featured more in Matthew's gospel, as Mary is featured in Luke. Joseph is featured as, if nothing else, obedient. An angel comes in a dream, take the child, go to Egypt. No problem. Gets up immediately in the night and leaves for Egypt. And I never really thought about it beyond that. Nice story. And, Matthew's trying to make connections. Matthew's gospel could be summarized by saying Moses was then, Jesus is now. There's just a big shift, but everything that Moses did, Jesus has to do only better. So, you're all familiar with the circumstances surrounding the birth of Moses. I mean, the Pharaoh wanted to kill all the first males. Sound a little bit like Herod? And so what does Moses' mother do? Well, I don't want that to happen, so I'll better just let the child go and breathe in the river. And that happens. Well, you know what happens? Moses gets adopted by the Pharaoh's daughter, and that's how it all gets started. But it all started in Egypt. So somehow we have to get Jesus back to Egypt. And, I thought it was an interesting fabrication. Matthew just doing some literary footwork and getting the child back there. I never really thought about the historicity of it. And until our senior warden, Carolyn Sapleski, recently went to Egypt. And I gave her a set of my rosary beads, one of my prized possessions. And I said, bring these with you and use them. And you must understand that some of the earliest expressions of Christianity are in Egypt, so be conscious while you're there. And she was. And actually, she brought back this book, one of these, I'm leaving you now, one of these coffee table books, Treasury. And God bless her heart, she made her husband lug this thing. It weighs 25 pounds all the way through Egypt. But anyway, what you'll see here, this is a very simple artistic rendering of the Holy Family. And you can see, Mary is on a horse, Joseph kind of leading the way with the baby and so forth. You see? Yeah. So anyway, the Holy Family, some of you have had children. What would it be like to jump on a donkey and cross the desert, the Sinai, northern Sinai, drop down into the Nile Valley, and kind of be on the run. And it's fired the imagination of the church for centuries, and not so much Western Christians. We tend more to pay attention to what happened north of the Mediterranean rather than south in Egypt. But this is really important stuff to Coptic Christianity, the expression of Christianity in Egypt. And in fact, I've spent the entire week listening to documentaries about the flight into Egypt and the legends and the traditions that have stemmed from those two short verses that say that the Holy Family fled into Egypt. And as a matter of fact, in the Coptic Church, the Coptic Orthodox Church in Egypt, there are actually 20 recognized sites by the church where pilgrims have gone for 2,000 years to recreate and to remember and to give thanks for the voyage that the Holy Family made at a very perilous time. You remember that relationships between Israel and Egypt historically were not good. And truth be told, they haven't been much improved. And so, anyway, David, if you'd lower the screen, what I did find, and I hope you enjoy this documentary as much as I did, it's about a 7-minute meditation that's offered by a Jesuit priest from the UK on a painting that was done by a French artist whose name is Eugene Girardet, Girardet, on the flight into Egypt. It's quite famous. And it was painted, they think, somewhere between 1890 and 1910. The artist had gone to Africa and Egypt, Palestine, and so forth, and wanted almost archaeologically to do paintings of the indigenous cultures there, and came up with this take on the flight into Egypt. Nate, go ahead whenever you're ready.
Eugene Giroud painted The Flight into Egypt. It comes from Matthew chapter 2, verses 13-14. When the Magi had departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, Rise, take the child and his mother, flee to Egypt, and stay there until I tell you. Herod is going to search for the child to destroy him. Joseph rose and took the child and his mother by night and departed for Egypt. And he stayed there until the death of Herod. Looking at Giroud's painting of Mary and Joseph now in Egypt, the pyramids are in the background. They've arrived. They've escaped the horror of Herod's slaughter of the innocents. The Lord has led them into safety of a sort. They are the early representatives of the thousands and the millions of people who have had to flee their homes. They are among the first refugees, the first who have had to give up everything to try to get to safety, to protect their family. Joseph and Mary have saved the life of their son, our Saviour. The donkey shows us that they're worn out and tired. The donkey is worn out and tired. The donkey's the one who carries the load. And even Joseph seems to be weary. He's there to protect his wife and her son. It's a new dawn. The sun is rising. But what is going to face them? What is it going to be like to be a refugee? To be a stranger in a strange land? The scriptures tell us very little. Just that when Herod dies, the angel comes again and tells them it's safe to go home. For many of the refugees today, that might not be possible. But Mary and Jesus understand what it is to be a refugee. They understand totally what it means to flee in order to save life. We tend to leave Joseph out of the picture. But of course, Joseph is also a saint. He's also somebody who we can turn to. And he understands also as the one trying to protect his family. So the dawn is rising as they enter into Egypt. And because of that bright sun in the background, they're safe. But we also need to be with and to sympathize, empathize, and help those many millions of people today where the future is not bright, where there is no sunshine in their life. So not only do we spend time with this painting, but we need to spend time in dialogue with Mary and Jesus. We can tell them about our concerns. They understand.
To the flight into Egypt. And it's been a blessing this past week, and it's fired my imagination that, as soon as the Christ child is born, there's trouble. There's trouble. And it seems to me that if the Christ is the representative of eternal being, of the divine inherent in humanity, when it first comes into the world, it's a threat. And Herod seems to me a metaphor for the ego. The ego wants power and attention and pleasure. And eternal being has no interest in any of those things, and thus is a threat. And so we have this problem. We have this problem of spirit and flesh, the material and the spiritual. And one of them has to flee in order to survive. I'm not sure what that means to me. But it seems that spirit sometimes has to hide from the world. And we have to hide it in ourselves so that the world won't see how vulnerable we are. And makes loving hard. Makes loving hard. Because when you love, quite often, your heart is exposed and broken. And, the Jesuit made mention, as the Jesuits often do, of the plight of the refugee. Just even recently with the evacuation from Afghanistan, we saw thousands and thousands of people desperate to just get out. I tried to imagine what it would be like, to pack up Sandy and Biz and say, anything is better than this. We've got to just go. What would that take? To sympathize with, thousands and thousands of people. That's their lot in life. These refugee camps all over the world are increasing in size. And we're aware more and more that those who minister to them are in greater danger than they ever have been. And so there's danger. And then we have, these churches in Egypt. And almost all of them, certainly 80% of them, are devoted to the Virgin. Makes sense. The largest among them, just outside Cairo, is probably the main Mecca of pilgrimage in Egypt, not only for Coptic Christians, indigenous Egyptian people, but from people all over the world. And, one might argue about, the origins of the church and, her early life, but there's no question that the greatest theologians were from Alexandria, both Athanasius and Origen. They were long before Augustine, they were the architects of Christian theology and fought the heretics there. But, what there is no doubt about, and why, perhaps I'd love someday to have the privilege of going to Egypt, is that those were the first monks. When you go west in Egypt out of the Nile Valley, there's nothing but desert. And when there's nothing but desert, there's only God. And the earliest Christians were pursued, they were persecuted, and they forged monasteries in the desert where they could be alone to seek, to find something that they knew was worth finding. The pearl of great price, Spirit. And it was from Egypt, Anthony, Pachomius, Mercurius, those early monks and nuns, the mothers and fathers of the desert, that gave rise to Benedict and all the others. And so maybe Egypt is calling us. Who wouldn't like to go up to the television show of your life and just hit the pause button? Just stop. And open yourself to God. Seeking only, I'm here, what do you want? Give me the strength to do it. Simple enough. So, maybe an encouragement, I don't know, people making New Year's resolutions, thinking about 2022, the possibility and hope that a new year offers before us. How can we make the best of it? I don't know. Maybe a retreat. I don't think it's everyone's call, certainly, to go to a monastery or be a monk or a nun. I mean, that's a unique and rare vocation. But a visit, perhaps. And if not physically, just, to schedule timeouts. Yeah, like that. So, again, I'm just really grateful. Number one, for Carolyn coming back and bringing me this great book about Coptic art. But to think about, the Holy Family. And, this is something that God did. That God did. And, the sense is that, once they left Bethlehem, it didn't end there. They were pursued. They were hounded. Not only by, Herod's soldiers, but in Egypt. Remember, those people, they had their own thing going on in terms of spirituality. And when they found out that, there was somebody special in town, they were persecuted even further and kept on and on and on. So, every now and then, if you feel a little bit persecuted, like the Jesuits said, you can go to Mary and Jesus with that. They'll understand. Yeah.
Contributions to St. Luke's Episcopal Church help to make the digital ministry and other outreach within the community possible. If it is in your heart to make a donation, St. Luke's secure PayPal link, as well as the church's mailing information, may be found in the description of this video. Thank you.